So I was listening. If you go to Redacted on YouTube, they have they've had a couple of doozy shows recently, but today they had somebody on there. I forget his name, but you can go to the website. It's the Journal of 9/11 Studies. These would be other people in their expertise, in their profession, that have studied all the things that weren't told to us. Basically, what this gentleman says is that just like a drone, they directed the planes like a drone, like something took it over. Does that surprise you? Look at all the drones. So do you think they can't do that on a big scale? And for those of you that are still mindlessly, asleep, let me say this. Part of what these studies were with psychologists, engineers, and people that review. I mean, the amount of information that was left out of the 9/11 Commission report, the amount of questions that were never asked that should have been, and the way people were given to get off the hook was by saying, like the military was, we were never notified, so that got them off the hook. But then there's people that, there's been those lower level, because our military, the low level isn't the problem. Again, it's the generals, but it's not just them. I've been going off on all the associations of everything because they're just arms of the government. Well, the American Psychological Association compromised itself after 9/11 and decided to get in bed with the Department of Defense. So this psychologist, she writes a paper. If you go on the website, Journal of 9/11 Studies, it'll never be on the mainstream media. The mainstream media is controlled by the same people. So, and they know how, I mean, there was also this gentleman, as I said, he's retired from structural and civil engineering, something like that. He says he won't even say anything anymore, because he says linguistics has been used. And I think most people know linguistics is the study of language. There's a reason they say trust the science. There's a reason they say experts. They say these certain things over and over again. The unthinkable is unthinkable. It's a way that they have gotten into the minds of every American citizen. And yet the way they've done it is to use these associations. They're all garbage. So he said it's just no good. It's no good. He said we would have to come up with an entirely new language to snap anybody out of it. So as far as this woman who's a psychologist, her letter, let me just, before I get to her, this engineer, he said at the end of his letter, he wrote, words have a power to enchant and mesmerize. Linguistics, mind control, especially when linked to traumatic events such as 9/11 and the anthrax attacks, can strike people dumb and blind. Yeah, it does. Don't people that are awake see that? It often makes some subjects unthinkable and unspeakable. That's a quote from Jim Douglas, quoting Thomas Merton in JFK and the Unspeakable. The unspeakable is the void that contradicts everything that is spoken even before the words are said. We need a new vocabulary to speak of these terrible things. He also goes on to say, to paraphrase, the President Vince Salandre, who said it long ago concerning the assassination of President Kennedy, the attacks of 2001 are a false mystery concealing state crimes. If one objectively studies the 2001 attacks together with the language adopted to explain and preserve them in social memory, the mystery emerges from the realm of the unthinkable and becomes utterable. There is no mystery. How to communicate this when the corporate mainstream media serve the function of the government's Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird, repeating and repeating the same narrative in the same language. That is the difficult task we are faced with. That's why you can't snap people out of it. Then to this psychologist, what she had to say was infuriating to me, but not a surprise because all of these associations are a problem. American Medical, American Nursing, they're just arms of the government. So she said, I'm just going to read part of what she wrote here. Imagine then how my head spun when I learned from an article by Roy Edelson, a past president of Psychologists for Social Responsibility and a member of the Coalition for Ethical Psychology, that the prestigious American Psychological Association had sacrificed its do no harm ethics and had become intimately involved with the torture programs of the Department of Defense and the CIA following the attacks of September 11th. This ethical regression by the APA is one of many examples of the fallout from 9/11. It's a symptom of the lows to which a democratic society can fall when its standards of openness, justice, and rights, civil and constitutional, are violated by officials in high places. The threshold for what is possible and permissible, ways of treating our fellow man that were unthinkable 15 years ago, has been breached in the most horrendous way. Before 9/11, most of us wouldn't have been able to fathom the concept of health consultants, devising and supporting enhanced interrogation techniques, a phrase that purely and simply means torture. After the 9/11 attacks, APA leaders were eager, according to Edelson, to curry favor with the Pentagon as a ticket to expanding their sphere of influence in their bid to governing them. In other words, according to Nuremberg, the defense of I was following the law or I was just following orders could no longer serve as a valid defense for someone who was found violating basic ethical principles. With this titanic shift in its ethical code, the APA gave psychologists permission to set aside their ethical responsibilities if those responsibilities inherently conflicted with military orders, governmental regulations, national and local laws, and any other form of governing legal authority. Thus, APA leadership unilaterally unraveled for its members a well-regarded international legal precedent. In this regard, the APA is a study in contradictions. The organization had earlier adopted an enforceable standard focusing on humane treatment of animals, yet after 9/11, it did not adopt an enforceable standard focusing on humane treatment of human detainees. Some might think that this contradiction deserves rethinking, hopefully in the direction of humane treatment for all beings, especially those in captivity. Had the American Psychological Association prohibited its members from participation in these operations, as did the American Medical Association and the they're all bad. All of them. She's just looking at it from the 9/11s. They're all compromised now. Each person has these different, they've looked into it and everything that hasn't been told to us. So I'm seeing this play out. Also, one of them had talked about this. They've trained Americans into learned helplessness. Yeah, it's such manipulation. It's so sad. It's sad. It's disgusting, and it's just no good. It doesn't work, and I see it playing out. It's why the healthcare system is in dire straits. Okay, and the doctors aren't. Nobody's doing the right thing. Like, I mean, I don't know many, okay? I mean, at least where I work, they're now, the top is putting pressure because a psychologist runs most of it. And so she said, I don't care if there's not enough staff, the top wants me to open up another unit. So they opened up another unit without the staff to handle it. But there won't be any repercussions for that, not under this government system, because the government's in bed with that shit. The problem is her, okay? Because everybody's pissed off at her, okay? The place is dangerous enough. But what now is happening, and I've thought this for a long time, it's why I don't have respect for leadership, is people have said, no, you know what, at least tell me, you know what, you're going to sell out and not do the right thing. There's no way you don't know what the right thing is here. She knows. She's a psychologist. She knows it's not safe, but she goes along with it for the paycheck and her title. And that's what is now everybody's at least seeing that, saying, you know what, don't insult my intelligence by telling me this is safe when you fucking know it's not. The government.